Barbara Stanwyck's final letter was written just days before she died. She was 82 and ready to confess everything. She named the studio executive who forced her into a fake marriage. She revealed which female co-stars were her real lovers, and she admitted why she testified against her friends during the communist witch hunts. But the most shocking confession comes at the end. She wrote about the child she gave birth to in 1929 and why she had to give it away. That secret explains her entire life. The letter ends with 6 words that will haunt Hollywood forever. Barbara Stanwyck's story began with a kind of hurt that settles deep and never really leaves. She came into the world as Ruby Catherine Stevens on July 16, 1907 in Brooklyn, the youngest of 5 children in a family that barely held itself together. Money was always short, but the real break came in July 1911 when she was only 4. She was riding a streetcar with her pregnant mother and her 6-year-old brother when a drunken man shoved her mother off the moving car. The fall took the baby and then took her mother too. Ruby watched her lie on the pavement, unable to move, and she carried that picture for the rest of her life. 2 weeks later, her father walked away from everything. He left for Panama to work on the canal and never returned. He died in an epidemic there. With no parents left, the children were scattered. Ruby bounced between relatives and foster homes, sometimes 4 in 1 year. She stayed with her eldest sister Mildred in a small Flatbush apartment that sometimes held up to 13 people. The noise and the crowd made her feel like the world was shifting under her feet every day. When she was 9, she began tagging along with Mildred on summer vaudeville tours. Backstage, she practiced dance steps and watched the lights, feeling the pull of something bigger than the life she had. Silent film star Pearl White became her secret guide. She saw Pearl jumping off trains in The Perils of Pauline from 1914 and thought maybe escape was possible if she worked hard enough. At Public School 152, she did not care much for classes except for literature. She liked stories, but she did not like the fights, the teasing, or the feeling of being an outsider. At 14, she dropped out and took a job wrapping packages at a department store because she needed money to survive. All these early moments shaped her. The streetcar tragedy, the disappearance of her father, the endless foster homes, and the time she spent around vaudeville hardened her and pushed her toward independence. It was this same fire that carried her into show business and helped her stay there. At 15, she joined the chorus line at the Strand Roof in Times Square in 1923. She danced through the night in heavy costumes from midnight until 7 in the morning. Her pay was $30 a week. It barely covered anything. The work was loud and wild and full of danger because powerful men watched the girls like they owned them. Ruby, now learning fast, kept her guard up. The strain was real, but she learned precision and control. This was where she built the steel inside her. That same year, she decided her own name did not match the life she wanted. She chose Barbara from the play Barbara Frietchie, and Stanwyck from actress Jane Stanwyck, whose name she had seen on a billboard. The new name felt brighter and smoother. Agents liked it. Casting directors remembered it. Changing her name felt like opening a door and stepping into a new room. 3 years later, she landed her first real break. In 1926, she joined the cast of The Noose on Broadway. It opened on October 20th, 1926, at the Hudson Theater, and ran for 9 months with 197 performances. She earned $75 a week and endured 12-hour rehearsals that pushed her to her limit. Her role made people pay attention. She proved she could act with force and emotion, and that she could do it night after night. In 1927, she took on Night Hostess. It ran only 24 performances before closing because of scandals and the messy world of prohibition. Still, she soaked up everything she could from the role. She understood speakeasies and dancers and the uneasy feeling of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. That truth made her performance sharp, even if the play did not last. Later that year, she stepped into burlesque. This time, she played opposite Hal Skelly, and the show ran for 372 performances. People talked about her presence and her emotional strength. Hollywood listened. Paramount brought her in for a screen test. That moment shifted her path. She was no longer just a stage actress. She was on her way to becoming something larger. In the same year, she appeared in a silent film called Broadway Nights. She was 20 and had just finished making a name for herself on Broadway. Her role was small, but it paid $500 for 2 weeks of work. Films were changing fast then, and many early projects vanished or faded quickly. Even so, this was her first step on camera, the start of a long climb. By 1929, she moved to Paramount to star in her first talking picture, The Locked Door. She played Anne Carver, a frightened wife trying to survive a violent marriage. Sound pictures were still new, and she struggled to adjust. Her voice felt wrong, her movement felt too big. She later said she was lost and did not know how to soften herself for a microphone. Reviews were harsh, and the studio nearly dropped her. She was tired, embarrassed, and scared. But Frank Capra saw something in her and decided to cast her again. That one choice kept her career alive. In that same year, she made Mexicali Rose. She played a saloon singer riding through western dust, even singing her own songs. The film was cheap and the reviews were rough. Audiences did not connect with it, and she found herself stuck in roles that focused more on her looks than her talent. But she kept going, and she kept taking risks. Everything changed in 1930 with Ladies of Leisure. Frank Capra directed it, and this time she found the right balance. She played Kay Arnold, a party girl trying to rise above her past. The film was a hit and pushed her salary to $1,250 a week. Audiences saw her emotional honesty and the depth behind her tough shell. The role made her a star and opened the path to decades of powerful performances. Still, Hollywood was not gentle. In her early years, she felt the shadow of the casting couch culture. Rumors and stories followed her, and biographers noted how young actresses like her were often trapped by powerful men who demanded more than talent. Whether the whispers were true or not, the environment was real. She learned to survive through grit and skill because she knew no one else would protect her. Barbara Stanwyck stepped into Illicit in 1931 when she was still rising, and the moment she appeared as Anne Vincent, something shifted. She played a young woman who chose to live with her boyfriend, without marriage, at a time when that idea could send shockwaves across America. People whispered about it in theaters. Some censor boards banned the film, others demanded cuts. The New York State Censorship Board rejected the original version in April 1933 and pushed for edits that softened the idea of free love. Even with that pressure, Illicit became a hit and crossed $650,000 in its first run, which was a major win for Warner Brothers. It also showed everyone that Stanwyck could carry a film built around complicated modern women who refused to stay in one box. Anne's final twist, where marriage only brings infidelity, made the story feel sharper and more daring. It set up a path for Stanwyck that kept expanding every year. Soon she stepped into Night Nurse, also in 1931, and the shift was even stronger. She played Laura Hart, a nurse who stumbles onto a plan to murder 2 children in a wealthy home. The film moved with gritty realism and refused to back away from danger, and Stanwyck pushed that feeling even further. One of her lines, "If you were a man, I would knock you down," turned into a symbol of the independence she carried on and off screen. Night Nurse pulled in $1.2 million and pushed her into the center of pre-code Hollywood. She threw herself into physical scenes and even let Clark Gable slam her into a wall to make the moment feel real. Critics said she made a simple nurse feel strong and human at the same time, and the movie became a landmark of early 30s filmmaking. Then came Babyface in 1933, the film that burned itself into history. Stanwyck played Lily Powers, a woman who climbs from poverty to power by using every tool she has in a world ruled by men. The New York State Censor Board rejected the original cut in March 1933, calling it immoral. Warner Brothers cut 10 minutes and reshot the ending, but even then the story carried a fire that people could not ignore. Babyface earned $1.2 million and became one of the most controversial films of the era, pushing Hollywood toward stricter rules that would become the Hays Code in 1934. Stanwyck's performance showed ambition, survival, and raw honesty, and the film is still remembered as one of the boldest pieces of pre-code storytelling. The same year, she joined Frank Capra for The Miracle Woman. She played Florence Fallon, the daughter of a mistreated clergyman who becomes a fake preacher and draws crowds with fiery sermons. The story was inspired by Amy Semple McPherson, and it mixed satire with emotional weight. Stanwyck stood in the middle of it all, shifting between anger, vulnerability, and sudden bursts of strength. When Florence finally faced her own lies near the end, the scene struck audiences hard. People felt the honesty in it. The movie showed again that pre-code films gave women room to breathe, to be flawed, and to lead. Away from the screen, her personal life carried its own storm. In 1928, she married Frank Fay, and the marriage grew darker every year. Fay was 12 years older, and his jealousy grew as Stanwyck's fame rose. He drank heavily, lost control easily, and hurt her often enough that she had to cover bruises with makeup before going on set. They adopted a son named Anthony, hoping it would help, but the tension only deepened. Friends said their fights shook the walls. By 1935, she filed for divorce, carrying memories that never fully healed. Many believed those years shaped the strong, resilient women she later played. Her career kept rising, and by 1937 she entered Stella Dallas. She became Stella, a working-class mother who gives up everything so her daughter can move into a better world. The shoot lasted only 25 days, and Stanwyck earned $400,000 for the role, which equals nearly $9 million today. She earned her first Oscar nomination, and even though she lost to Louise Rayner, her performance stayed with people. The scene where she watches her daughter's wedding from the rain became one of the most heartbreaking moments in cinema. Akira Kurosawa later listed the film among his 10 favorites, and many still see Stanwyck as Hollywood's ultimate weeping mother because of this role. A year later, she turned to comedy in The Mad Miss Manton. Here she played Melsa Manton, a rich socialite who solves murders with a group of lively debutantes. The film ran for 80 minutes and raced through mysteries and quick jokes. Her timing was so sharp that she often outshined Henry Fonda. She threw herself into wild scenes, tied up reporters, and made the comedy feel natural. The movie became a favorite for fans of screwball laughter, and Stanwyck proved she could jump from tears to comedy without losing a step. By 1939, she climbed into the saddle for Union Pacific. She played Molly Monahan in Cecil B. DeMille's huge Western about the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. Filming took place in the Utah desert. Stanwyck insisted on doing her own stagecoach stunts. She had learned acrobatics in vaudeville as a child, and she used that training here with a fearless spirit. She worked long hours, took the heat without complaint, and earned the respect of everyone on the set. Her tomboy energy gave Western films a fresh push and showed she could command an action film as easily as a drama. Then came Ball of Fire in 1941. She became Sugar Puss O'Shea, a nightclub singer hiding from mobsters among a group of quiet professors writing an encyclopedia. The production cost $1.4 million, a huge amount then, and it earned over 2 million worldwide. Her jitterbug scene with Gary Cooper became iconic and turned Sugar Puss into one of her most loved characters. She was paid $75,000 and earned another Oscar nomination. During filming, an accident broke a co-star's jaw, and Stanwyck carried the guilt for years. Still, the movie blended comedy and suspense in a way that felt fresh, and Sugar Puss became a character people remembered for her wit, charm, and independence. Only 3 years later, she stepped into Double Indemnity in 1944, and everything changed again. She became Phyllis Dietrichson, the cold femme fatale who draws an insurance salesman into murder. It became her highest-paid role at $150,000. Billy Wilder used Venetian blind shadows to shape the film's mood, and her whisper, "We can get away with it," became one of the most chilling lines in Hollywood history. People worried this role would hurt her career, but it pushed her even higher. The film cost $1.3 million and earned more than $4 million across the world. Stanwyck earned another Oscar nomination, and many still say this was the film that sealed her place in noir history. In 1946, she returned to a darker world in The Strange Love of Martha Ivers. She played Martha, an heiress trapped in secrets, guilt, and blackmail. Kirk Douglas made his film debut beside her. The story, based on Love Lies Bleeding, carried a deep psychological weight. The budget was around $1.2 million, and the film earned more than $2 million. Critics said Stanwyck brought layers to Martha that lifted the movie beyond simple noir. Her performance felt rooted in her own battles with fame and marriage, which made the story feel even more real. By 1944, she reached a peak no one expected. She became the highest-paid woman in America, earning $400,000 a year, equal to about $6 million today. She made 10 films in 4 years, and each one averaged $87 million in modern box office numbers. She even testified before the House Un-American Activities Committee in 1947, standing beside her second husband, Robert Taylor. Her financial power stood out in an industry that rarely gave women that kind of space. For a girl who grew up in a Brooklyn orphanage, the rise felt almost unreal. Her private life kept raising questions. Rumors about her sexuality floated through Hollywood for decades. Biographer Axel Madsen wrote that the truth would probably never be known. People whispered that she was the biggest closeted lesbian in the industry. Her marriages to Frank Fay and Robert Taylor were called Lavender marriages by some. In 1981, when journalist Bose Hadley pushed her about her relationships, she threw him out of her home. She never confirmed anything, and during the Lavender scare, her silence protected her. Her close friendships with women like Marlene Dietrich kept the rumors alive, but Stanwyck chose privacy over explanation. Barbara Stanwyck stepped into 1950 with a kind of fire people were not used to seeing in westerns. In The Furies, she became Vance Jeffords, a woman who matched every man in power and anger. The director, Anthony Mann, wanted the film to hit harder than the usual frontier story, and she gave him exactly that. There is a moment that still makes people blink. Vance fights back against an attacker, and the scene jumps to her driving sewing shears into his eye. It was so shocking that some theaters cut it out before showing the movie. Still, the audience kept coming, and the film earned $1.5 million on a $1 million budget. People realized the genre was changing. Critics called her performance brutal and unforgettable, and said she showed that a woman could lead a story filled with danger and moral confusion. A few years later, she stepped into a different kind of battlefield. In Executive Suite, from 1954, she became Julia Treadway, the woman who controlled the largest share of a huge corporation. She was quiet, sharp, and always watching the room. In real life, she had years of experience fighting for better contracts and more control in Hollywood, so she understood what power looked like behind closed doors. In the film, the entire boardroom waits for her vote, and the tension builds as she questions William Holden's character before finally giving him her support. The movie hit theaters in June 1954 and earned $3.4 million, a real success for MGM. People called it one of the first true boardroom dramas and pointed to Stanwyck as the reason it felt so real. Then came 40 Guns in 1957, and once again, she surprised everyone. Samuel Fuller gave her the role of Jessica Drummond, a woman who ruled Tombstone with calm confidence and a long black coat that moved like a flag behind her. She rode into town surrounded by 40 armed men, and it was clear who led them. Fuller filmed her eyes in close shots, showing strength mixed with something deeper. The movie pushed the limits of what Westerns showed, with bold violence and open desire. Jessica's relationship with Griff, played by Barry Sullivan, flipped the usual gender roles. She chose what she wanted, and when she wanted it. Released in July 1957, the film became a cult classic, loved for the way it dared to change everything. In Clash by Night from 1952, she carried something heavier. She played May Doyle, a woman trapped in a rough fishing town and a marriage that felt too small. Fritz Lang directed with long shadows and slow pans that made the world feel bleak. Stanwyck gave May the confusion and hunger of someone who knows she is making mistakes, but still moves toward them. Her scenes with Robert Ryan, who played her lover, were raw and full of tension. She had just gone through a painful divorce from Robert Taylor, and that hurt showed through in quiet ways. The film came out in March 1952, and reviews were mixed, but nobody questioned her performance. It felt human and honest, and it shook people who were not used to seeing female desire shown so openly. Her real life, though, was far more tangled. In 1939, she entered a marriage that Hollywood arranged, not love arranged. MGM wanted to cover up Robert Taylor's bisexuality and the rumors about her own relationships with women. They married on May 13, 1939, but the union was empty from the start. Taylor reportedly did not even kiss her after the ceremony and went home alone. Both had affairs. Both grew resentful. Their public fights became whispers through the studio lots. They stayed together on paper until 1951, though biographer Axel Madsen wrote that whatever closeness they had ended within months. It became one of Hollywood's most famous Lavender marriages, a reminder of how the Golden Age forced people into shadows to protect careers. By the time she moved into television in 1960, she had already lived several lives. Still, she stepped into The Barbara Stanwyck Show with energy. It ran for 36 episodes, and she played a different character each week, shifting from quiet housewives to spies to a young boy in The Dragon by the Tail. She even produced some episodes herself. At 53, she was proving that age did not slow her talent. In 1961, she won the Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Performance by an actress in a series, showing that the small screen had room for big stars with real skill. Then came The Big Valley in 1965, and television found one of its strongest matriarchs. She played Victoria Barkley from 1965 to 1969 and carried herself like someone who had built the entire ranch with her own hands. She rode horses at 58, held rifles with ease, and led the cast with steady force. The show became the highest-rated Western on TV. She earned $10,000 each episode, which today would be more than $80,000. She won an Emmy in 1966, received more nominations, and became one of the highest-paid actresses on television. Victoria Barkley became a symbol of strength and a reminder that women could command Westerns just as much as men. In 1983, she returned again with something unforgettable. In The Thornbirds, she played Mary Carson, a wealthy and bitter woman whose final moments became one of the most shocking scenes on television. She undressed in front of the camera in one continuous take at age 76, leaving the crew stunned. It was bold and layered with emotion. She won an Emmy and a Golden Globe for the role, becoming the oldest actress to receive such major awards. People saw it as a late-life victory that proved she could still take over a story at any age. Her private life with her adopted son Dion was far more painful. She and Frank Fay adopted him in December 1932, when he was only a month old. They hoped it would fix their marriage, but instead, everything fell apart. By 1944, when Dion was 12, he was badly injured at a summer camp and needed care. Doctors called Stanwyck again and again, but she never came. Work always came first. Their bond shattered. By the 1950s, she cut him out of her life completely. They shared one awkward lunch in 1952, arranged by Dion's uncle. Then, nothing. His life was marked by that loss, and he grew up struggling with identity and resentment. It became one of the saddest chapters in her story. Her political beliefs added another layer. She supported conservative candidates like Thomas Dewey in 1944 and 1948, and joined the Motion Picture Alliance for the Preservation of American Ideals. She supported Hugh Essie and the Hollywood Blacklist, and she stood by Robert Taylor when he named colleagues he believed had communist ties. Many in the industry never forgave her. The blacklist ruined careers and damaged friendships, and her role in it cost her roles and isolated her from a large part of Hollywood. Her toughness on screen came with a price. On the set of Cattle Queen of Montana in 1954, she swam in icy lakes at age 50. During 40 Guns, she performed a stunt in which a horse dragged her across rough ground. A stunt even the professionals refused to do. Years of smoking made her health worse and left her with arthritis, bronchitis, and eventually COPD. In 1953, a director called her old during rehearsals for Blowing Wild, and she fired him without hesitation. That moment showed her refusal to let anyone define her weakness, but it also showed how much pressure she carried. By 1982, while filming The Thornbirds, the special effects smoke made her breathing worse, and she never recovered fully. Her first marriage ended in violence. In 1935, Frank Fay attacked her during a drunken rage, fueled by jealousy over her success in Stella Dallas. She needed medical care afterward, but kept everything quiet to protect her image and her son. She divorced him that same year, though she never publicly exposed him. It became another hidden wound that shaped how she moved through the world. Her final years were quiet. She lived at the Motion Picture Country home and rarely saw visitors. She had a heart attack in 1986, and her health continued to decline. On January 20, 1990, she died at age 82 from congestive heart failure and COPD at St. John's Health Center in Santa Monica. She asked for no funeral. She left only her work and the complicated story of a woman who fought, suffered, and kept going. In 1982, before those final years, she received an honorary Oscar at the 54th Academy Awards. She was 74. John Travolta handed her the statue while the room stood and cheered. She had starred in 85 films and had been nominated 4 times, but never won a competitive award. She kept her speech simple. She said she had been working since she was a kid. It was the kind of line only someone like her could deliver, plain, full of truth. Her influence still runs through cinema. Her performance as Phyllis Dietrichson in Double Indemnity in 1944 became the blueprint for the femme fatale. Meryl Streep and many others have called her a guide in showing how to mix strength with vulnerability. She starred in more than 10 noir films, each one adding something new to the genre. Her letters, scripts, and research notes are stored today at the University of Wyoming's American Heritage Center. There are 56 boxes covering her life from 1929 to 1996. Inside are her conversations with people like James Cain, who co-wrote Double Indemnity. They show how seriously she took her craft and how much work went into every role. Her anti-communist activism remains a controversial part of her life. It cost her work and pushed her to the edges of Hollywood during the blacklist years. Scholars still discuss how her politics shaped her career and how they affected the industry around her. And then there is her beginning. She grew up in Brooklyn, an orphan with little money and no safety net. She climbed from nothing to become one of the most respected actresses of her time. She starred in 85 films, won Emmys and Golden Globes, and became known as the best actress who never won an Oscar. Her story is told in biographies like Steel True from 2013. It continues to inspire people who see in her life the long climb from poverty to fame, powered by talent and relentless drive.